This is it. The time has come. This is it. For us to be one. This is it. One. What's going on, Wiz Nation? What's going on, Mystics Nation? Once again, welcome to another episode of DC Hoopla. I am your host, K. Jose, the other half of State of the Wiz, the other half of the Voices of the Unheard. Wizard season ends in a losing effort. We had another losing season, no play-ins, no playoffs. We had a lot of dysfunction in this offseason, a lot of egos that were busted, but we made some trades as well, so I will be discussing that. So before we even get started with that, definitely want you guys to follow me on IG, Twitter, subscribe to this YouTube channel, follow my man WizTex at Wizards Mafia on IG, Twitter. Subscribe to his channel on Spotify, his podcast. Also, subscribe to both of our channel on YouTube, State of the Wiz. Follow us on IG as well as Twitter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen because I'm going to discuss some things. But the Wizards finished out the season with a losing record. We actually finished out 35-47. But right in front of me, I have Porzingis' numbers so far this season. But what I'm going to talk about is what his numbers was like as a Wizard. So in his 17 games as a Wizard, he put up 22.1 points. He averaged almost 3 assists a game. He averaged 8.8 rebounds. He blocked 1 shot a game, a block and a half, should I say, almost 2 blocks. He had shot 87% from the free throw line, shot 36% from 3, shot 47% from the field. These are very good numbers, and he did this in 28.2 minutes in his 17 games as a Wizard. Now, those numbers are all-star type numbers. These are the type of numbers that I think can go up if he's healthy. I think that Porzingis can be a 25-point scorer, and I think he can pull down 10 rebounds a game. So with me saying that, I believe that if the idea is him, Beal, and Kuz, and I'm going to talk about Beal, in this episode as well. If the idea is that we're going to be selling those guys to the fan base, that these are the 3 guys that's going to be the nucleus, then I believe that Porzingis should definitely be option number 1 on scoring. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, no, this is Beal's team. It should be Beal. Well, currently, it's not Beal's team because he's a non-committal player right now. He's currently a free agent. So at this moment, Porzingis should be the number 1 option. When you're putting up 22 points a game, you got to get him involved. I'm not going to say he's a Jokic. I thought that West was reaching on that. I'm not going to say that he's Dirk. I'm just going to say that he is Porzingis. He's a guy that can do a lot of things. Defensively, well, not defensively, should I say, I would like for him to take advantage of a lot of his mismatches, especially when he has a shorter person on him. A lot of us would expect to see him bang, but Porzingis' frame that he has, it's a very scrawny type frame, so he's not going to be the type of guy that's going to be physical and that's going to back his opponent down. If anything, he's going to shoot over his opponent. But we're looking at his numbers. I think if he's healthy, this will probably be one of the best big men players that this franchise has had in probably forever. Imagine if John Wall had had the opportunity to play alongside a guy like this, it's a possibility he could, because there are rumblings that he may end up being a Wizard this offseason. So since I brought up about the offseason, let's talk about that. What is the expectations for this offseason? Well, the expectations for this offseason is that it's very critical for Tommy Shepard to make the right moves. A lot of people have been making excuses for Tommy Shepard and say he's a little bit better than Ernie Grunfeld. He has done some things that are a little bit better than Ernie Grunfeld, but he has done some things that are no different. What are the things that he has done that's a little bit better than Ernie Grunfeld? Well, he's been very reluctant on trading first-round picks, for players that don't really move the needle, which Ernie Grunfeld was known for. Yes, he sacrificed the first-round pick, but he put heavy protections on it when acquiring Russell Westbrook. But by him doing that, it makes it more challenging for the Wizards to make moves going forward, because the Wizards can't trade this year's first-round pick, being so that next year's first-round pick is pretty much have language and stipulations on it. So the expectations are, Wes Unseld Jr. says he wants a tall point guard that can be a pass-first point guard. Now, the names that I've been seeing thrown around are Malcolm Brogdon, I believe it's Trey Jones, Jalen Bronson, DeMonte Murray, who plays for the Spurs. I don't think the Spurs are going to let him go. Malcolm Brogdon, I believe he has 2 years left on his contract. I believe it's like $45 million that he has left on his 2-year deal. But Malcolm Brogdon is 29 years old. He's also been injury prone. Does Malcolm Brogdon move the needle? He can score, but he's not a past first point guard. That goes against what Wes Unseld Jr. said. DeMonte Murray, is he a pass first point guard? If he's a combo guard, that goes against what Wes Unseld Jr. is asking for. So there are only 3 guys that fits that bill. That's Rajon Rondo, Ricky Rubio, and of course somebody that we're very familiar with, John Wall. John Wall is a pass-first point guard, but he also can score. Rondo is a pass-first point guard. He's not looking to score. Ricky Rubio's scoring has improved since he's been in the league, but he is a pass-first point guard. But Ricky Rubio is also coming off of an ACL injury. Do you really want to pay a guy who's coming off that type of injury? Now, history shows we've done it in Spencer Dinwiddie, and look how that turned out. He's now a Maverick in the playoffs. So the names of the Brogdons and the Trey Jones and the DeMonte Murrays and the Jalen Brunsons and all that, these guys are scoring more. I know people would say, well, we should have drafted Tyrese Halliburton. Well, I've already went down that rabbit hole. Tyrese Halliburton's camp wanted him to be drafted by the Sacramento Kings. So I don't know why we keep bringing that up. But, some people say Tyrese Maxey. These guys score first. Wes Unseld Jr. has told you he wants a pass-first point guard. So that should be the idea. Is there a pass-first point guard in this year's draft? No, there isn't. I know there's people who say, well, Ty Washington, Dyson Daniels and all these other players, but they don't fit what Wes Unseld Jr. is asking for. Plus, Tommy Shepard said he doesn't see a point guard in this year's draft. Now, that could just be him playing chess, because maybe there is a guard that he's looking at and he just doesn't want the team to draft him. We don't know until draft night. But at the end of the day, to get a pass first point guard, I've already told you, and I believe that the Wizards are going to most likely bring back John Wall to be that guy, because this will be the most talent John Wall has ever played alongside of since he's been in the NBA. He wasn't injured as to why he didn't play this past season. It was more of an agreement by the Houston Rockets that we're actually moving forward. So let's talk about the draft. Let's talk about some of these names that I'm constantly seeing. Well, I'm going to show you some numbers. So these 4 names here that I put up, Abaji is a name that nobody's really throwing around. But the first 3 names are names that I'm constantly seeing a lot. So you got Benedict Mathurin, Johnny Davis, Dyson Daniels, and then of course you got Abaji. If you look, and this is from Tanklathon, they have Benedict Daniels Mathurin going 8th. They have Johnny Davis going 9th. So this is before we are going to pick. Now, all signs are looking at we're probably going to pick 10 if things don't change in the lottery. The only person that's going to be possibly available, maybe Daniels may slip. I think Daniels will slip. I'm sorry, Davis. Davis may slip to 10 if we're picking 10. But Daniels, I believe he will be available. Abaji would definitely be available because nobody's talking about him. But let's look at these guys' height. If you look at the height, Benedict Mathurin is the tallest out of all of them. Dyson Daniels, which seems to be everybody's favorite, is 6'6". But when we start looking at his numbers and start comparing the stats, you're going to see that he's nothing more than a project, which I'm going to challenge some of the people who are actually all in on Dyson Daniels. So Dyson Daniels is also the youngest out of all of these prospects. Abaji is the oldest. Now, most people probably don't want Abaji because of the fact he's a senior, and some people weren't impressed with his performance in this past year's tournament. But one thing that stands out about Abaji is his wingspan. He has a 6'10" wingspan. He's 6'5". That's what Beal is allegedly. His height is 6'5". I think Beal is more closer to 6'4", maybe 6'3". But Abaji is also 214 pounds, so he's not no scrawny type dude. So he won't get bullied in the paint. But let's look at these stats. So Mathurin averages 19.6. Davis averages 20 points, almost 21 a game. Daniels, 13. Abaji, 19. Rebounding, Johnny Davis is a better rebounder than everybody. Daniels actually rebounds 7, almost a little bit over 7, which is pretty impressive. It's very impressive with Johnny Davis because he's 6'5" and he's averaging 8 boards. So that's pretty damn impressive. Assist-wise, Dyson Daniels is a better player when it comes to passing the ball. Abaji doesn't pass as much. Blocks, it's between Daniels and Davis. They're both even. Mathurin is not really a leaper. Steals goes to Daniels. Abaji doesn't steal the ball as much. Now, turnovers goes to Daniels. He's the leader in turnovers. When it comes down to fouls, Abaji doesn't foul as much. So he actually is strategic when it comes down to fouling. Now, when we look at field goal percentage, Abaji is the better field goal shooter out of all of them. When it comes down to three-point percentage, Abaji is the better three-point shooter out of all of them. Now, when it comes to free throw percentage, it goes to Johnny Davis. He averages almost close to 80%. On here is saying that Daniels shoots 73%. I thought it was a little bit worse than that. But when you look at three-point percentage, Dyson Daniels shoots 25%. That's terrible. So when I'm looking at Dyson Daniels' numbers, Dyson Daniels makes me think of Lonzo Ball in some aspect. Some people say, oh, no, you're crazy. Well, Lonzo Ball in college was known to be a pretty good shooter, but since he's been in the NBA, he is known to be not a very good shooter. It's actually improved. But if you look at his frame and you compare it to Daniels' frame, they're pretty similar. Dyson Daniels is a project. And what I ask people who are very high on Dyson Daniels, if you guys are so critical about Denny, critical about Rui, and you kind of mix when it comes down to Kispert because he doesn't get as much criticism, and you feel that these guys are not the guys, they don't have it, why would you go after Dyson Daniels? Why would you advocate Dyson Daniels when you see he can't shoot? Shooting is one of the issues that this team has. We're one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league, and you're going to add a guy who's shooting 25%. Beal had an all-time low in three-point percentage. Hal Neto, you know, you know, Rui was actually the better three-point shooter pretty much out the whole team. But the vast majority of the team struggle behind the three-point line. And you want to add another player who's shooting 25% on this roster? I just don't get it. It doesn't make sense. And when we talk about usage rate, I mean, Daniels is completely blank when it comes down to that. You know, Daniels is in the G League. And these are the type of numbers that he's putting in the G League when he's playing against professionals. And what you're seeing is an average player. He's a project. He's actually the same age as Isaiah Todd, who also was in the G League last year, who a lot of people are writing off as a bust. But you're high on Dyson Daniels, who's coming out of the G League too, who looks like he could be a potential bust, who's actually going to be a first-round pick, whereas Isaiah Todd was drafted in the second round. It just doesn't make any sense. So when you just look at these numbers, you have to make it make sense. And I don't understand why people are so high on Dyson Daniels. So anyway, what it boils down to when it comes to this draft, we don't know what direction Tommy Shepard is going to go in. 9 times out of 10, he's going to draft somebody that nobody's even talking about. You know, it's going to be a WTF type of pick on that night. It's going to be somebody that we're all going to ask ourselves, who is this kid? Why did we draft him? What's so special about him? We're going to have to go on YouTube, look at his highlights. We're going to have to go and research about this kid. It's going to be somebody that we're going to just ask ourselves, why did we do this? So that's enough about this upcoming draft. So let's talk about Beal, because I said I was going to talk about it. I'm saving him for last, and I'm going to end my show on this. So Bradley Beal is a free agent. We know he's had this podcast. We know he said it's fair that he may, sign long term. But then he also said some things differently when he was on Draymond's show. He said that, it would be kind of tough to make as much money as he's going to make, but also knowing that his team, and I'm kind of paraphrasing the way he said it, but he said knowing that his team will probably get their ass kicked every night. So he's not looking forward to that. But Ted Leonsis, who is going to write the check, I don't give a damn what Tommy Shepard is saying. Tommy Shepard is saying that he can say everything he wants, but it's Ted who has to write the check. And if you notice, Tommy Shepard's talking points have changed within the last several weeks. Now he's basing that Bradley Beal will stay because of the 10-year relationship he has with him. He's basing it off of that. But here's why I believe that Ted is not going to write that check for Bradley Beal. If most of you guys have been paying attention, and I know none of you guys are talking about this, with the exception of myself and D-Can, Ted Leonsis is now trying to purchase the Nationals. He has a business partner where the both of them together are trying to purchase the Nationals. The Nationals are worth $2 billion. 9 times out of 10, the Learners are going to probably sell the team around that amount. The Learners bought the team from Major League Baseball at $400 million. And I believe that was back in 2006. The Learners have also got $500 million in debt. You can look at it on WashingtonPost.com. You can read the article. They have accumulated $500 million in debt. In my opinion, I think the Learners are going to pass that debt to Ted Leonsis if he's able to purchase the team. So let's just say the team is going for $2 billion. That's how much the Learners are selling it. Now, if the Learners are going to sell it for $1.5 billion and it turns out to be $2 billion, that means that $500 million in debt is being passed on to Ted Leonsis and his business partner. If not, then it would be $2.5 billion. Now let's stay with the $500 million. Beal is scheduled to make $250 million. And Ted will possibly inherit $500 million in debt. Where is Ted going to have the money to pay one player $250 million? Because for him to purchase the Nationals, he's got to show that he has liquid cash to purchase the Nationals. I would think him acquiring the Nationals would be equivalent to a person buying a house when you can't really go out there and spend any money because all your money is accounted for because you got, especially if you're financing the house, you're getting a loan, they're looking at the way you're spending your money to make sure you can afford to pay the mortgage. So if Ted is if he's going to acquire the Nationals, I don't think he's going to be able to fork out $250 million to one damn player. I just don't see that. I don't think Ted is going to write a check that he can't cash. The only check he's going to write that he's going to try to cash is these damn Nationals. Here's another thing. Look at the hockey team. We have Alexander Ovechkin. Has Ted ever paid Alexander Ovechkin $200-something million since he's been a Capital? I don't believe he's ever paid him that kind of money on one particular contract. And Alexander Ovechkin is not only a Caps legend, but he's an NHL legend. His rival has always been Sidney Crosby. Sidney Crosby. That's been his rival. Sidney Crosby is one of those faces of the NHL as well. So these two guys are future Hall of Famers and they're legends, NHL legends. And Ted has never paid Ovi $250 million or close to $300 million. He's never paid him that money. And if you look at the history of this team, of the Wizards, every player who was given a supermax deal has never finished that deal with the Wizards. From Juwan Howard to Gilbert Arenas to John Wall to even Chris Webber. Chris Webber had got a contract extension and he never finished it here. Caron Butler got a contract extension. He never finished it here. But when we talk about max deals, Howard, Gilbert, and Wall is all you need to look at. Especially with Wall. Wall never even got a chance to even play into his max deal. He was moved the first year of his max deal. He got moved. So I don't see Bradley Beal getting this contract, especially when Ted is trying to buy a baseball team. And if he does, he's not going to finish it here. And Bill is going to explore his options this offseason. We have to understand there are going to be teams that's going to come after Bill and it's going to make pretty good offers. And once again, just to kind of go back to what I said earlier in the podcast, and maybe I didn't say it, if the idea is that we're going to, put out there that Kuz, Bill, and Porzingis is going to be the nucleus, I'm going to say this. Nobody in the NBA is afraid of those three guys. And we have to factor in the Eastern Conference is much more competitive. So we don't know what moves may happen. Here's another thing. Damian Lillard just came out recently and said he would be open to a trade. He doesn't want to be somewhere where he's not wanted. Now, for the longest, Damian Lillard, like Bill, kept saying he want to stick around and stay with his team. But now he said he's not going to oppose a trade at all. If Damian Lillard comes to the East and he's not on the Wizards, and I don't believe the Wizards should even go after him because we don't have anything to give up to get him. And I don't think he would be a fit because it would go completely against what Wes Unseld Jr. is asking for. But if Damian Lillard ends up on another team in the East, how in the hell are we going to sit here and think that we have a chance to compete? 9 times out of 10, we're going to be competing for the play-in again. So anyway, that will end another episode of DC Hoopla. I definitely want you guys to like, share, and subscribe. And be on the lookout for an episode of State of the Wizards. This is K. Jose. You guys have a good one. Time has come, for us to be one.